Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 17 in this series on developing a real-time strategy game in Unreal Engine 5. In today's video, we'll be upgrading our projects from Unreal 5.0 to 5.3, the current newest version. When I began this series, 5.0 was the newest version. In fact, it came out the week I began recording this initially. And for those of you who know my style, this was reflected in section 2. Where the data used for the starting time of our game is the actual date of recording. In this video, we'll be doing three things primarily. First, we will update our engine to 5.1. Second, we will implement the new enhanced input system, replacing what we used in earlier videos and earlier iterations of Unreal. Third, we will check our blueprints for any major errors. Then we will update to 5.2, repeat the third step, and likewise again repeat that step for 5.3. Alrighty, and as always, if you've enjoyed this series so far, make sure to hit that like button down below, and also make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon, as it really does help this channel out, it helps other viewers out, and it means that you know when new videos are released. And if you're feeling charitable enough to want to support this channel a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors get early access to these videos, and depending on their tier, instant access to ongoing and completed project source files. Other tiers only get completed project source files. And now that my usual spiel is done, let's make a start. Open up the Epic Launcher, not your project, and we'll get started. Okay, so here we are inside of our launcher, and as you can see, I have a few RTS projects. For anyone who has my camera from the marketplace, don't worry, there is a 5.3 version, it's just not in a separate project like these ones were. In fact, these are all now out of date. But you can see we have our project file here, the RTS tutorial 5.0, and then here's a prep file for this, which is, as you can see, in 5.3, and this one is the old series. So there are two ways to upgrade a project. There's upgrading in place, which you cannot do from the launcher, which we will do when we upgrade from 5.1 to 5.2, and then from 5.2 to 5.3, and then making a copy and upgrading. Now, you can do this in two different ways. You can do this from the launcher, which is what we'll do, or you can literally copy the project and then do a copy or an upgrade in place. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our engine version. We're going to go to 5.1. Now, when you're upgrading, you always upgrade from the current version you're on to the next newest. You do not go all the way to the newest. So we're at 5. We're not going to go from 5 to 5.3. We go to 5 to 5.1 to 5.2 to 5.3. So we're going to click on the 5.1, since that's the next newest version from 5, and hit launch. Okay, so once that's opened, I'm going to type in RTS at the top here. And we can see our RTS project right there, the 5.0 copy. And we're going to do open. And it's going to give us this warning, hey, this is a different version of the engine. And it's going to allow us to open a copy. And this will copy our folder over and our project files and everything in it and upgrade the engine. In fact, we'll go to that folder in a minute. So you need to know where your project is saved on your computer. Right, so right now it's doing its upgrade. It's gonna take some time to compile shaders. Once that's done, we'll get back to it. All right, so once it launches, you'll notice we get this warning message about some project settings are wrong. Now, in earlier versions of Unreal, we used SM5, Shader Model 5. In newer versions of Unreal, we use Shader Model 6. If we go to Project Settings, and we could just click Open Project Settings, this will actually only affect people who are using Windows systems. So if we go down to platforms and Windows, we can see we have this option for SM6. Now, you don't have to use SM6. In fact, throughout the tutorial, we won't be, as far as I'm aware, or at least I'm not planning to, use anything that needs Shader Model 6. So if you don't want to use Shader Model 6, what you do is you go down to Default RHI and change this to DirectX 11 or Vulkan. But we're going to use Shader Model 6, so we're staying with the newest version of things. So under our D3, D12 targeted shader formats, I'm going to choose SM6. This is going to tell me that I need to restart. So I'm going to hit the restart now. It's going to recompile all the shaders, and it'll be good to go. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so it's now recompiled shaders for SM6. And you might notice every so often we get this little bit of a funky shadow effect. I know it's in a few of the videos, but that is due to the fact our project is currently using virtual shadow maps. Now that -1, which sometimes will show up as a 0, you can go ahead and ignore. That is due to the fact that my personal projects and work projects, I use the visual logger now. Yeah, it has no bearing on this tutorial. Ignore that's there. As for our shadows, we type in shadow in our project settings, and we find a shadow map method. You'll see it's virtual shadow maps. We're gonna just change that to shadow maps for now. If you are using runtime virtual textures or virtual textures of any sort, go ahead and use the virtual shadow maps. Okay, with that done, we are going to do our upgrades to the enhanced input system. Now, for that, what we're gonna do is go into core, go into player, and in player, we're gonna create a new subfolder called inputs. And in inputs, I'm going to create a new input context mapping. So I'm going to right click, go to input, and input mapping context. Now, I'm going to say this really quickly. If you've already got one of these for some reason, you're adding what we're doing in this tutorial to your own project, and you have your own remapping system, and you are not in 5.3, but you're in 5.2 or 5.1, don't upgrade. Unless you know the changes they've made to the remapping system in 5.3 as compared to 5.1 and 2. All right. It doesn't affect anything else. It doesn't affect what we're doing in this tutorial. Don't worry. Some things will look a bit visually different. So I'm going to name this input mapping context IMC RTS. I'm going to go ahead and save. And then I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to go to input, and I'm going to create an input action. So the IMC is what actions is it handling? The input actions are the actions themselves, so to speak. So I'm going to name this one IA move, and this is going to handle our move forward and move left and right. Okay, it opened up in a different window, which means that we need to go to our project settings, or at least I do, or editor preferences, and under asset editor open location, I'm going to change that to main window. All right, now I'm going to open up IA move, and in here, in IA move, all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the value type from digital bool to an access 2D. So this will give us a X and Y value, which is why we can use it for both forwards, backwards, left, and right. All right, and I don't think there are any other changes I want to make in this one. There are not. Next, we had in, if we want to double check where I'm going with this, you can just go to our old inputs, go down to our axis mapping. We've taken care of that one, and now we'll do the action mappings moving straight down the line. There will be some slight differences, by the way. Very slight, but it relates to what's known as chorded actions. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So next I'm going to do IA zoom in. And in zoom in, once I have it open, there are no changes I want to make. This is a digital bool, and we will consume the input. I'm going to duplicate this for zoom out because it's exactly the same. Again, I'm going to save. Then I'm going to create another new one. And this will be called IA zoom reset. Pop that open. And in here, we are going to have a bit of a difference. We're going to have a modifier. Sorry, a trigger, not a modifier, a trigger. And our trigger is, it's going to be a chorded action. Now we can fill in this chorded action here, and we will do so in just a moment. But all a chorded action is, if we go back here for a minute and go to our zoom reset, is when we are using 2 or more inputs to achieve the effect. So in this case, we had middle mouse button and our control. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a 2 modifiers actually. They'll both be input actions, so IA, and one will be left control modifier. I'm just going to pop that open, and we're going to change nothing in here. And the next one will be IA left alt modifier. All right, I'm going to save those all real quick, and we're going to get an error message in the zoom reset because it does not have a chorded action inputted into it yet. So I dismiss that just so I can see when I save that I've done it correctly. We'll be good. And in this case, because I believe we used control, yeah, we did, I'm going to select the left control modifier here and save it. Now, if I save all again, you'll notice we don't get any error messages. Cool. After that, I'm just going to duplicate the zoom in. We'll do IA pan. And I don't believe we need to do anything in the pan. Just pop it open and double check. Nope, digital bool is correct. And then we're going to have our IA reset pan. And And this one will have a trigger. It will be a coordinate action. And let's just go back to our project settings. And our pan reset used the alt, which is why we created the alt earlier. I just want to double check that it was actually the alt one. So left alt modifier. Go ahead and save, and notice we don't get any of those error messages. Okay, so now we have pan, and we have our control modifiers. We can do our basic movements and all that fun stuff. Sorry, actually I was speaking, I realized I skipped one. We have one more to do, which is IA reset camera. I'm actually gonna rename this pan reset as, or reset pan as pan reset. All right, so reset camera, let's pop that open. We actually are gonna get rid of the coordinate modifiers. It is a digital bool. That is all correct, and we are good to go forward, I think. Oh no, I did skip one more. Sorry about that, and that is our speed modifier. So we're gonna do IA speed modifier. Awesome. And let's just make sure this is still digital bool. It is, and we're gonna save. Let's open up our IMC RTS now. And in here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our movements based on these, access and input mappings. So we'll add our first mapping in, and this will be our IA move. And if you hit that little keyboard, you can then click a key. So there's W. That'll be our forwards. We need one for backwards. We need one for left, one for right. And if you're following along with what we did in the project settings, we also had up, down, left, and right. Okay, so let's just go through these in order. For our up, we have to do nothing, so we can move past it. For our down, we have to add in a modifier. And we have to add in a modifier known as negate. And what negate does is it does the opposite of whatever the normal is. So if we look at our, for instance, our axis mapping for the move forward, the negate would be that negative. So we're going up one, we're going down one. That's all negate is doing. For our left movement, we have to add two modifiers. One, we need to negate, because this is working like our move right did, where our left is negative and our right is positive. But we also have to then swizzle our input axis values so that it knows to go, hey, it's actually left, right, not up and down. Likewise, for D, we have to do one modifier, and that is swizzle, because again, it's just gonna be a positive value. We're moving in the right. So for up, we have nothing to do. For down, we add in one modifier, which is negate. For left, we add in two modifiers, which is negate and swizzle. And then for our right, we just add in our swizzle modifier. All right, so that is our move done. We can go ahead and test that if we wanted to, but I'm gonna just get this all done in one order. And I know from my prep file that this should work, assuming I don't make any silly mistakes. Next, we are going to do our zoom in. So let's hit add, and I'm gonna search for my zoom in. Now we could do this, by the way, as one zoom in, zoom out as one thing. And I'm gonna show you how to do that at the rotate building preview and talk about something I mentioned in that video, but just be aware you can do this as one. We're gonna do it as two for now. So I could click this and try middle mouse wheel, but it gives me middle wheel access. But I want mouse wheel up. So I'm gonna search for mouse wheel up and use that. This one has no modifiers, nothing else to add in, so we're good. Next, we'll do our zoom out. And our zoom out will be, again, mouse wheel down. Again, if I do that, it gives us middle mouse wheel or mouse wheel. So I want mouse wheel down and not access. Okay, we are done with that one. And that brings us then to our pan. So let's add in our pan. And our pan trigger, which if we go back here and we want to double check what that is, oh, also we have page in and page down. I forgot about that. Let's go back to the zoom real quick and add in one more. So for zoom in, we have page up. For zoom out, we have page down. Okay, sorry about that. For pan, what do we have in pan, by the way? We have mouse wheel, middle mouse button, and home. So I'm gonna click there. Middle mouse button works on that, awesome. And our home key. Cool. I don't need to add any modifiers to this. That works for me. That's awesome. Right, next we're gonna have our resets. So we'll do our zoom reset. And our zoom reset is going to be the home key. Or is it the home key? Let me just double check, 'cause I can't remember now. So reset zoom, it's middle mouse button and the control key. So we're going to first do middle mouse button. We are then going to do a modifier, even though our zoom reset has that modifier. Now, if you are in Unreal 5 3, you will not need to do that because it will have another little drop down. Let me just show you what that will look like. Let me bring this over. And it will have target input actions, and it will, or triggers from input actions, and it has a coordinate action there already for you. Yes, that was the prep file, by the way. And this, what was this one actually? It is left control. So we will do left control. I don't need a modifier. Sorry, I meant trigger. Coordinate action. Click the chevron next to it. And it is left control. I'm just double checking myself there. Yep. And our last one that we did for this was end, which has no modifiers needed. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work in 5.3 because I didn't include that in the prep file because I forgot it was there. Cool. Well, we'll find out the fun way together. Next, I'm going to add in another one, which will be our pan reset. And in pan reset, what we did here, because I can't remember the commands anymore, was middle mouse button and home with alt. So middle mouse button, trigger, coordinate action, chevron, and then left alt. And I'm just going to paranoidally double check that I did this as left control here. I did. Okay, cool. Then we have our home button with a trigger, a coordinate thread or coordinate action, and it will be left alt again. Okay, let's go ahead and save that so far. Then we have reset camera, which I just believe is the R button. I literally just watched that video for some reason. All right, and that reset zoom. Oh, sorry, that's reset zoom. I didn't do reset camera. Let's do reset camera. And let me just make sure I didn't mess up my reset zoom by accident here or something. I added an extra one in. Okay, that looks good to me. Does that look good to me? Yeah. Under reset camera, we're just going to use the R key because that is what we did here. All right, next we'll add in our speed modifier. And we'll do left and right shift for that one. Okay. With that done, we are able to go over to our player controller and begin changing things around to test stuff out. So let's go back up to player, open up our player controller. Now in here, before we really start testing things, we're gonna have to make a change. And what we're gonna do for this change is we're gonna move all of this to the right. You might also notice that, hey, this now is a bit different. What's changed is we have this flush input option that wasn't there or wasn't exposed earlier. I'm just gonna take everything that I can and I'm just gonna move it down. So I can just give myself a bit of room to play with here. Move this down. And at the very start on the begin play, on the then 0, I am going to search for get enhanced input local player subsystem. If you're not doing this in your player controller, you'll first have to do get player controller. From there, I'm going to add a mapping context. So add mapping context. And that's going to look for one of our IMCs. We only have one, so we're going to add that mapping context. I'm going to save real quick, though, before I continue. And so now we're saying, hey, this is the one that we want to use. If we have more than one context, we can switch between it. So like if you have vehicle versus foot-based movement for an FPS, that's one way of handling it. And priority will say which mapping is used. So, you know, are we looking at which one to apply first? Then we'll take the one with a higher priority mapping value. Then we'll use ones beneath that if those keys are available. All right, so with that done, we can then come back over to our actual controls and change things out. So I'm gonna type in, for all of this, by the way, I'm gonna type in IA, and I'm gonna do IA move. And under that, I want, just to make it clear, the one under action events. And it might look a bit different on newer versions. In fact, all of these things are still here. They're just sometimes hidden away, and you can click the little chevron to see the full list. What I'm going to do first, though, is look at the action value here. I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to split that struct. Then I'm going to take the input pin from triggered and plug it into our basic movement controls. Holding the control key, I'm going to move from our move forward to our action value X, and same for the right from the axis value to our action value Y. Okay, next, what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to worry about the comments, is I'm going to just unpin these. I'm going to delete the reroute and move them off to the side. This will go over here for now. We'll get rid of these at the end of the video, by the way. Next, I'm going to search for IA speed modifier. And this one is a little bit different. I'm going to take from the pressed off the original speed modifier, and that goes into triggered. For the release, it's canceled and completed. So what we're saying here is when we've completed whatever we're doing, stop it. I.e. when our fingers are no longer on the button, or we take our finger off in either of these cases. Our edge scroll remains the same. For our zoom in, zoom out, we're going to do is search for IA zoom in. And we're just going to unpin from pressed and go into triggered. And likewise, we'll do the same for IA zoom out. Take from pressed on the old input system and go into triggered. And then for our zoom reset, we'll do IA zoom reset. If you're in a newer version, click the chevron so you can see all the options, because we aren't going to use triggered. We want to, in fact, use started in this case. Now, this is just because I found it works a little bit better for what we're doing here. So that is our zoom events taken care of. Our pan events. Okay, so we're going to search for IA pan. And again, this one's a little bit different. We're going to go from pressed into triggered, and from released into canceled, and into completed. All right. Our pan reset, we'll do IA pan reset. Again, click the chevron on the newer versions to see the full list. We'll go into started, and then IA reset camera. Again, click the chevron, full list, into started. Okay, now the reason why I find started works better for those than triggered is it keeps trying to reset them. If you do it on triggered, if you do it on started, it does it once, it goes, I'm done. Right, we'll have to take care of these in just a moment, but for now, let's go ahead and test this out. So if I hit play, and I'm doing this in this window so that I can have debugging on, we'll ignore the fact that the thing is currently edge scrolling like crazy. All right, so left, right, forward, down, left and right, or right and up and left, down and right, down and left. Edge scroll, edge scroll, edge scroll, edge scroll. Zoom, zoom out, zoom in, and then, okay, our reset zoom is not working. Interesting. Pan. Okay, so there are two little errors we have to take care of. One, our zoom reset doesn't seem to be working, and our camera reset is working, but our pan, and I'm going to pan again, is having a bit of issue where it's resetting. All right, let's take care of those. You know what? I realized that I skipped a step all in. Let's go back into our IMC. We actually have to add our coordinate actions in. We haven't done that. So first, we're going to add two new, well, this is just one at a time. We'll add two in. It'll be left alt modifier. So we're going to do left alt. We have nothing to add to that. And then for our control modifier, we'll do left control. Make sure to select the control modifier. We have nothing else to add to that. Let's go ahead and save. And then let's hit play. So there's our zoom. Our zoom reset works. Let me do zoom again. All right, so, you know, if we want to use that home button for zoom, it looks like we might have to actually do that as two separate things. But there is our zoom fixed. Okay, let's take care of our pan issue. Sorry, just really quickly, the N key does work, but you do have to use the coordinate action for it because we have told it should be a coordinate action. We didn't do it in here, but we did do it in the actual input action. Okay, now let's get to the pan. All right, so I was comparing the prep file to this file, and in the prep file, I didn't put all the input actions in, or all the key mappings in. I put all the input actions in. Well, you can see I have panning working now in this one, just like I do in the prep file. And what I noticed the difference was not in the panning, but in the zoom reset. It's the only other one that had a coordinate action that used the middle mouse button. So I am actually going to do a different zoom reset. We'll actually have one for either mouse wheel up or down, so mouse access. And then we'll do a trigger. We'll do a coordinate action. And then let me just go back to see which one we used here because I'm now blinking. We use the left control modifier. All right. and chevron left control modifier. Let's go ahead and test this, make sure it works now. So panned, still panning, zoom out, and then, oh, that was a pan. All right, zoom in, zoom out, or sorry, that's reset zoom out, reset zoom out, reset zoom in, reset zoom in, reset zoom. Okay, so our reset zoom is working now with that coordinate action. Oh, we also didn't test this one. All right, our speed modifier is working. All right, cool. Next, we have one more to do, and this is going to be a special one, and that is our rotate our building preview. But before we do that, let's go ahead and delete all the old input events here. And for this one, well, we could do it as 2, just like I have done here, or we can do it as 1. Now, in the video, I talked about a way to make this a single polymorphic function where we don't have a left-right. What we're going to do would work well with that, and I'll show you how to set it up even. So first, let's go back to our IA pan. Let's go in here. Just duplicate one of these. This will be IA rotate preview. Let's go in here, and we're going to change this to an axis 1D float. Go ahead and save that. And let's go over to our IMC. And let's just minimize all these again. And we're going to add in a rotate building preview, or rotate preview. And for our rotation left, we'll use the less than or opening caret bracket symbol or comma on a US keyboard. This will need a modifier of negate for our little trick to work. And then we're going to add in one more input, and this will be our right rotation, which will be the greater than caret, closing caret, or period stroke full stop on a US keyboard. And again, we don't need to do anything for that one. And the reason why we're using negate is, remember, we're thinking about this as -1, 0, 1. -1 when we press the comma key, 0 when we're pressing no key, and 1 when we're pressing the period key. So if we go in here and type in IA rotate preview, I'm just going to save all real quick, we have this little value here. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to truncate it, because we only really care about the whole number. And then we're going to do switch on int. And we're going to plug that into the triggered. And then we're going to get rid of the default pin. And we're going to add in 3 pins. But first, before we add in all of them, we're going to change the first one to -1. Then we'll get 0 and 1. Okay. From here, we're going to take the rotate left, unpin it from pressed, put it into -1. And then the same for the right, but into 1 instead. Now, if we want to make this more performant and get rid of all of this, what we could do, as I mentioned in the previous video, is make this polymorphic. And to do that, we would add in a float input. And we'll call this a delta rotation. And then we go back into the player controller. And we'd plug in a multiply to the input value. And we use a number that we have in our building manager, which is 15. And plug into there. And the reason why this works is this is either going to be 0, and we're not rotating the building, -1, or 1. And if we look at the difference between these, well, all the difference is a multiplication of -1. Are we adding in 15 or taking 15 away? Now, if you do this, this has to plug into the bottom pin there because of the transitive properties of math. A positive minus a negative minus another negative, all that will play an effect. But hey, we're not doing that in this tutorial. That is just something you can do. So let's go ahead and delete that. Let's get rid of this extra input. And let's make sure that works. All right, so I'm just gonna, not sure why I'm trying to get to a starting spot. We have a player start. All right, I'm gonna hit B. There's our building. And our rotate is working. Now, as you can tell, it's a bit quick. So something you might want to do is, try started, see what happens. And this is some of that experimentation I mentioned. So if you want to press it multiple times to get to do anything, then started works. If you want to be able to hold it down, then triggered works. For ongoing does nothing in this case. So I'm actually going to leave it on started. That's closest to what we had previously. And that one makes me the happiest for this. So that takes us through those actions. We can go ahead and delete those. Let's go to our player settings and let's start deleting these things out. We don't need move forward, we don't need move right, and we don't need all of these. Okay, there we go. So if I hit play, you can see I'm still able to move, I'm still able to rotate, still able to put the building in, still able to do that. Cool. So that takes us through the lion's share of what we're gonna do. Now, in reality, the next part would take ages. I've already done it. I can tell you that I've done it. I've done it multiple times, including an earlier recording of this very tutorial. But what you need to do when you do these upgrades is you need to go into your actual projects and go into each of your actors, each of your blueprints, and make sure there are no errors. Go through each function one at a time, looking for errors and remembering that we haven't done Destroy Preview yet, for example. But that takes us through getting it to 5.1, getting enhanced input. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna close the project and then we're gonna upgrade in place. So go ahead and close your project. And here is our project file. Here's the original version. Here's the prep folder, our thumbnails, and our upgraded 5.1 version. I'm just gonna rename this 5.2. Well, actually, I'm gonna rename it 5.3 real quick. And we're gonna go into our upgraded project. We're gonna find the U project. We're gonna right click it and we're gonna do switch Unreal version. And we're gonna go to 5.2. So this is upgrading in place. Now, really, you shouldn't be doing this. I have done this with this project before. I made sure that it all works. But once that's done, go ahead and open it. Make sure when you see the window pop up for it opening that says 5.2 on it. And it does 5.2. Awesome. I'm gonna let this load. I'm gonna quickly run it. Again, you should check every blueprint to make sure it works. I did that previously while prepping this out, so I know it does. But I'm just gonna hit play, make sure everything still works as it should. Okay, here we are now in 5.2. I can rotate or pan, zoom, reset, move, fast movement, going up a hill, going down a hill, and there we go. Okay. Oh, and there is my building. Awesome. Okay, so let's close that out. Let's right click the U project again and do this one last time. Switch Unreal Engine versions. By the way, if you were in a newer version of Windows, like Windows 11, at the very bottom, it's gonna say show more options. Click that, then you'll see all this. So switch Unreal version, and we're gonna go to 5.3. All right, let's open that up and make sure it works. Okay, here we are in the 5.3 version. And before we do anything else, I actually want to talk about something really quickly. I'm gonna open up the pan reset. And if you go to pan reset, you'll notice we have this trigger, and then we have this trigger from the input action. In 5.3, we really don't need this because we're inheriting the settings from the input action itself. If we wanted to overwrite it, then we would use that. And then it would use whatever we put in here. And we might want to do that in some cases, like where? Well, this home key. We might not want the trigger. Let's get rid of it, in fact. And let's do override settings and see what happens. I actually don't know. I haven't tested that with this. So there's pan, our normal reset, and then me using the home key. Okay, that did nothing. It was interesting to test that out. In fact, actually, I'm going to undo everything there. But that really does take us through with what we had planned for today. We are now in 5.3. We now have the enhanced input system running, and everything is good to go. So in the next tutorial, we'll be continuing with our building system. I'm going to be honest, I haven't prepped it out, so I'm not entirely sure what part we'll be doing next. We still have things to do with our preview, including the Destroy preview. We still have the construction stuff to set up and the actual running of the buildings. That last bit probably will happen in a later section, to be fair. But if you want to be here when we continue to work on our construction system in this Unreal 5 RTS game, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon so you know when those videos are out. And if you want to support this channel a bit further, make sure to hit that like button. It really does help the channel out. And if you're feeling charitable, as I said at the start of the video, and you have a bit of extra money and you want to help out even further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors get instant access to completed projects and ongoing projects at upper tiers. At other tiers, get access to projects once they are completed. And Patreon members also get early access to these videos and get input onto what topics are covered. All right, all of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.